Stop comparing yourself to others. Have you ever walked into a room full of strangers and suddenly felt small, anxious like you didn't belong? Or maybe after a conversation, you replayed your words over and over, thinking, I should have said that differently. You're not alone. Even the most confident people experience moments of doubt, discomfort, or uncertainty. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But here's the powerful truth. You don't need to fake confidence to find peace. You can actually become calm and confident by practicing something deeper than bravado. That something is Stoicism. Stoic philosophy doesn't promise to make you fearless. It teaches you to master what you can control, let go of what you can't, and stay grounded in reason even when chaos surrounds you. To get there, you must first confront one of the most damaging habits of modern life: comparison. Comparing yourself to others might feel like a natural impulse, but it's one of the surest ways to destroy your inner peace. Because you never compare fairly. You measure your whole life with all its complexities and unseen battles against someone else's highlight reel. Think about it. You're sitting on your bed wearing old pajamas, eating cold leftovers, and you start scrolling through your phone. Suddenly you see an old friend on vacation in Bali, tanned and toned, with a glowing caption that screams confidence and joy. Without meaning to, you feel a knot in your stomach. A mix of jealousy and guilt creeps in. And then comes the thought, what am I even doing with my life? But that's not motivation. That's emotional self-destruction. Because you don't see the full story. You don't see their sleepless nights, their silent anxiety, their personal failures. You don't even know if what they're posting is real. But somehow you let that one photo convince you that your life is lacking. That is the trap. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "We are not disturbed by events, but by the views we take of them." This quote holds the key to overcoming the trap of comparison. It isn't the truth itself that causes pain. It's the interpretation, the story you build around it. When you see someone thriving and label yourself a failure in comparison, you're not facing reality. You're creating a distorted narrative and believing it. Comparison is a mental illusion. You look at someone else's strengths and line them up against your own perceived weaknesses. That's not a fair scale. That's self-sabotage. And it damages your confidence one silent moment at a time. Even worse, the more you compare, the more you lose sight of your own identity. You begin chasing other people's dreams. You start molding your life to meet someone else's standards. Before long, you're not living your own life. You're performing a role you were never meant to play. Confidence doesn't grow in that kind of environment. It grows when you stop looking sideways and start looking inward. It thrives when you understand your values, your pace, and your path. Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who faced daily pressure and enormous responsibility, once wrote in Meditations, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." That's not just advice, it's a way of life. Instead of constantly analyzing what success looks like for others, commit to building your own version of success. Don't chase illusions. Build something real, something rooted in your character, not curated images. Social media has warped our sense of time and progress. It sells the idea that success is instant, that happiness looks a certain way, and that everyone else is doing better than you. But real peace comes not from beating others, but from no longer needing to. It's okay to feel behind sometimes. But remember, growth doesn't follow one schedule. Some people bloom early, others take time to grow their roots deep before they rise. Not all progress is visible. Not all victories are loud. When you compare, you abandon the only path that's truly yours. Every time you scroll and feel inferior, you lose a piece of your focus. But every time you pull back, reflect, and return to your own journey, you gain strength. That is what the Stoics called living according to nature. It means living in alignment with who you are, not who others want you to be. So the next time you feel someone is ahead of you, pause. Take a breath. Remember Epictetus' words. Remind yourself that what you're seeing is edited. It's only a fragment of someone else's story. Then return your focus to where it belongs, on you. You don't need to outshine anyone. You just need to show up for yourself with clarity and courage. That's the starting point of confidence. That's where calm begins. Remove toxic people from your life. One of the hardest truths about becoming confident and calm is realizing that the people closest to you might be the very ones holding you back. Friends, colleagues, even family members, some of them do not support your growth. In fact, some secretly want you to fail. Not always out of malice, but because your progress shines a light on what they haven't addressed within themselves. It's a painful realization, but it is also a necessary one. If you want to rise, you have to stop dragging the weight of unhealthy connections with you. In Stoic philosophy, there is a concept called ataraxia, which means a state of serene calmness, an inner peace untouched by outside chaos. The Stoics believe that maintaining this inner state is essential to living well. It is not a luxury. It is the foundation for clear decisions, self-control, and a life rooted in virtue. And that inner peace is heavily influenced by the people around you. Epictetus once said the key is to keep company only with people who uplift you, whose presence calls forth your best. This is not just advice to make your life easier. It is a call to protect your mental and emotional energy, because not all damage is loud. Some people drain you quietly, leaving you confused and exhausted after every interaction. Ask yourself, is there someone in your life who constantly leaves you feeling worse after you speak to them? Someone who questions your ambitions, mocks your efforts, or makes you second-guess your worth. That is not just a difficult person, that is a toxic presence. And the longer you allow it, the more it corrodes your confidence and clarity. We often stay in toxic relationships out of guilt or habit. We fear being called ungrateful, selfish, or disloyal. But Stoicism teaches us to protect our peace above all. If someone's presence creates tension, fear, or confusion in your life, you have every right and responsibility to set boundaries, even if that person is someone you once loved, trusted, or admired. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Roman emperors and a practicing Stoic, had to deal with liars, manipulators, and flatterers in his own court every day. He couldn't remove all of them, but he learned to control his reactions. Instead of trying to change them, he strengthened his mind. When people tried to provoke him or sway his emotions, he stayed centered. He reminded himself that their actions were outside his control. His response, however, was entirely his own. That is the essence of Stoic strength. You may not be able to avoid every toxic person, especially in work or family settings, but you can choose how much access they have to your inner world. You can choose how much of your time, energy, and attention you give them. If someone always puts you on the defensive or makes you feel small, it is time to reevaluate that relationship. Letting go is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-respect. Confidence cannot grow in hostile soil, and you cannot evolve if you are constantly surrounded by people who see your growth as a threat. I've seen it in my own life. A friend I once confided in would make sarcastic remarks every time I succeeded. She would say, "You just got lucky," or "Don't get ahead of yourself." For years, I brushed it off. I told myself it was just her personality. But over time, I realized I was shrinking to stay in that friendship. I was doubting my own progress. And worst of all, I was silencing my pride in myself. Walking away was difficult, but the moment I did, I felt a wave of relief. Then came clarity. Then space. Space to think. Space to grow. Space to connect with people who supported me without competition or criticism. And that's the beauty of setting boundaries. Once you clear the noise, the right people begin to enter your life. People who lift you up. People who encourage your progress. People who make you feel seen, respected, and safe to be yourself. These are the connections that strengthen you. But you can't find them if your life is filled with those who drain you. Do not confuse comfort with goodness. Some relationships feel familiar but are quietly destructive. And do not stay silent just to avoid conflict. Silence can cost you more than any argument. It can slowly erase your voice, your self-respect, and your joy. Choosing peace sometimes means walking away, not with bitterness, but with strength. Not to prove a point, but to protect your energy. And when you do that, when you remove the people who bring chaos, doubt, and darkness, you create room for clarity, healing, and real confidence to rise. Let this be your reminder. You do not have to explain your peace to anyone. You just have to choose it. Speak up. From a young age, we're often told that silence is golden, that staying quiet is wise, that holding our tongue is a sign of emotional maturity. And while there's truth in the value of listening, many people misunderstand silence as the ultimate expression of strength. In reality, silence can sometimes be something else entirely. Not peace, not wisdom, but fear in disguise. There are moments in life when silence is not calm. It is avoidance. It is self-erasure. It is the quiet surrender of your own identity. And if you stay silent for too long, you may one day wake up and realize that you no longer recognize your voice or your worth. Have you ever been in a meeting knowing something was wrong but said nothing? Have you ever swallowed your opinion just to avoid being seen as difficult or confrontational? If so, you're not alone. But you also need to know this: every time you choose silence out of fear, you lose a piece of your confidence. Over time, those pieces add up. You start to wonder if your thoughts matter. You start to doubt whether your voice deserves to be heard. And slowly you begin to shrink, not just in the eyes of others, but in your own. Stoic philosophy does not demand silence in all things. It teaches us to speak when reason calls for it and to remain quiet when words would do more harm than good. But it never promotes avoidance. It never tells you to hide who you are out of fear of judgment. Epictetus, a former slave who became one of Stoicism's greatest teachers, once wrote, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. Do not wish to be thought to know anything." What does this mean? It means that real growth often comes with discomfort. You must be willing to speak your truth even when others do not understand it, even when they misjudge you, even when it's uncomfortable. Confidence is not about walking into a room and demanding attention. True confidence is being able to speak without fear, without needing permission, and without second-guessing your own worth. It is having the courage to express yourself with honesty and clarity even when your voice trembles. It is refusing to stay silent when something inside you knows you must speak. Think of Amanda Gorman. As a young girl, she struggled with a speech impediment. She often stumbled through her words, embarrassed and unsure of herself. People told her she wasn't meant to speak in public, that she should just stop trying. But instead of silencing herself, she practiced. She wrote. She trained her voice, and she kept going. Years later, she stood before millions at the U.S. presidential inauguration and delivered a powerful poem that moved the world. Her once flawed voice became a beacon of strength and courage. What would have happened if she had stayed silent? What would the world have lost if she had listened to the voices telling her to stop? Her story is a reminder to all of us. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And if you don't speak up, the world will miss something only you could say. Many confuse speaking up with being loud, confrontational, or argumentative. But you do not need to shout to make your presence known. You do not need to argue to make your point. You can speak calmly, clearly, and with purpose. A stone does not need to scream to prove its weight. Your words, when grounded in truth, carry power on their own. There will be moments when staying silent feels easier. When you want to avoid conflict, avoid judgment, or avoid the spotlight. But ask yourself, at what cost? If you never speak your mind, if you never share your perspective, are you really living your life, or are you simply going through the motions to keep everyone else comfortable? Stoicism teaches us to live in truth, to speak when necessary, to express ourselves with dignity and courage. If you stay silent out of fear, you are not practicing calm. You are surrendering control. You do not need to wait for the perfect moment. You do not need to be polished or poetic. You just need to be honest. Say what you believe. Stand by what you feel. Let others see you fully and truly. Because every time you do, you strengthen the foundation of your confidence. And if you have ever been misunderstood, if you have ever kept quiet to protect your peace, know that you're not alone. But also know this: your voice can change your life. It can inspire others, it can heal wounds, and it can remind you of who you really are. Speak up not with arrogance, but with integrity. Not with noise, but with truth. That is where real calm begins. That is where unshakable confidence is born. Prepare to fail and learn from it. One of the most overlooked foundations of true confidence and inner calm is learning how to fail. Not just accepting that failure is possible, but preparing for it, facing it, and using it to grow stronger. That's a truth many avoid, but those who embrace it find something powerful on the other side. You will fail. It is not a possibility, it is a certainty. You will stumble. You will make mistakes. You will fall short of expectations, both your own and others. And that is not a problem. That is part of the process. The question is not whether you will fail, but how you will respond when it happens. If you treat failure like an enemy, you will become afraid to take risks. You will stay small, limited by your own fear. But if you treat failure like a teacher, stern but fair, you begin to unlock a new kind of wisdom. You see, failure is where you meet the edges of your ability. It is the moment that exposes your weak points and gives you the chance to strengthen them. When failure comes, don't run from it. Don't drown in shame or rush to blame others. Instead, pause. Feel the sting of it. Let it teach you. Then ask yourself, what can I learn? What could I have done differently? How do I move forward better? This kind of reflection is not about regret. It is about growth. And it is the path to developing endurance, humility, and mental resilience qualities that lie at the heart of Stoic philosophy. Consider J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Before her work became a global success, she received 12 rejection letters from publishers. 12 times she was told no. Each rejection could have been the end of her dream. But she didn't give up. She took the feedback, refined her story, improved her writing, and kept going. She wrote in cafes while raising a child alone and struggling financially. She endured every failure not by avoiding pain, but by staying committed to the process. This is what the Stoics call the dichotomy of control. Focus on what you can control, your effort, your attitude, your perseverance. Let go of what you cannot, the outcomes, the opinions of others, the setbacks that arrive without warning. When Rowling finally got that one yes, it wasn't luck. It was persistence. It was the reward of choosing growth over retreat. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, the obstacle is not something to avoid. It is the very path that shapes you. When you encounter difficulty, you are not being punished, you are being trained. Every struggle contains an opportunity to learn something deeper about yourself. Failure builds emotional muscle. The more you experience it and rise again, the less afraid you become. Your identity becomes less tied to success and more grounded in strength. That is where real confidence comes from. Not from always winning, but from knowing that even if you lose, you will not break. Think about the inventors, leaders, and thinkers who changed the world. Thomas Edison tried thousands of times before successfully inventing the light bulb. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the company he co-founded, before returning to make it one of the most valuable businesses in history. These people did not escape failure. They faced it head-on and used it to fuel their growth. Stoicism teaches us that setbacks are not to be feared but studied. They are part of the process of shaping who you become. Each time you fall and rise again, you gain a clearer understanding of your values, your priorities, and your strength. You develop a resilience that cannot be shaken by criticism, rejection, or temporary defeat. Seneca once wrote, "No one could endure lasting adversity if it continued to have the same force as when it first hit us." What he meant is that the mind adapts. Pain over time loses its sharp edge if you face it with the right perspective. Every blow you take builds resistance, and eventually you stop fearing the fall because you've proven you can stand back up. Failure is not your enemy, it is your mirror. It reflects your weaknesses, yes, but it also reveals your untapped potential. And once you stop running from it, once you begin to welcome it as part of the journey, you become unshakable. So prepare yourself not for perfection, but for progress. When failure comes, as it surely will, do not shrink. Do not hide. Instead, lean in. Learn from it. Rise with more clarity than before. Because that is the essence of Stoic calm, not avoiding difficulty, but mastering your response to it. Surround yourself with uplifting people. There is a simple truth that carries immense power. You become like the people you spend the most time with. Whether we realize it or not, the energy, habits, and mindsets of those around us shape our behavior, our beliefs, and our sense of self. If you want to cultivate confidence and calm, one of the most important decisions you can make is to be intentional about who you allow into your inner circle. Jim Rohn once said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." It sounds almost too simple, but think about it. Are the people in your life building you up or tearing you down? Are they challenging you to grow or encouraging you to stay stuck? Are they celebrating your progress or silently hoping you fall behind? The people around you can either become a source of strength or a source of slow destruction. If you are surrounded by chronic complainers, constant critics, or those who envy your success, their negativity will seep into your mind. Over time, your optimism will fade, your confidence will erode, and your vision will blur. It may happen so gradually you don't even notice, but the impact is real and lasting. On the other hand, when you surround yourself with people who believe in you, who push you to rise, who celebrate your efforts and challenge your excuses, you start to elevate. You begin to think bigger, act bolder, and believe that what once seemed impossible is now within reach. Their encouragement becomes your momentum. Their example becomes your inspiration. This is not just social advice. It is a Stoic principle. The ancient Stoics taught that your environment plays a key role in shaping your internal state. Just as unhealthy food harms the body, unhealthy relationships damage the mind. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, believed that while we cannot always control who surrounds us, we can control how much influence they have. The mind, he wrote, must remain guarded against pollution. That means choosing what and who you allow to shape your thinking. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is a modern example of this wisdom in action. Early in his journey, he kept ties with old friends out of loyalty. But as his goals became clearer, he realized many of those relationships were no longer supportive. Some friends doubted his vision, criticized his ambition, or reminded him of past failures. Their words didn't build him, they held him back. Eventually, he made the difficult decision to distance himself from them. Not out of hatred, but out of clarity. Once he did, space opened up for new relationships. He connected with people who shared his drive, his work ethic, and his values. That shift in environment allowed him to grow, evolve, and ultimately thrive. It was not an easy move, but it was necessary. And it is a lesson that applies to all of us. Choosing the right people is not selfish. It is strategic. If you want to grow into the strongest, calmest, most confident version of yourself, you need people who nourish that growth. You need mentors, peers, and friends who will lift you when you fall, challenge you when you drift, and cheer for you when you rise. But to make space for these people, you must first let go of those who no longer align with your values. That may mean stepping away from old friendships, limiting time with negative relatives, or saying no to relationships that feel one-sided or draining. It may mean walking alone for a while, but walking with integrity. You may worry that this will leave you isolated. That is a natural fear. But what you will find is this: once you commit to becoming the best version of yourself, the right people begin to appear. People who see you, support you, and walk beside you, not because they need something, but because they believe in you. These are the companions worth keeping. In the end, your environment is either fueling your fire or smothering it. Choose carefully. Pay attention to how people make you feel, not just in words, but in energy. After spending time with them, do you feel empowered or drained, inspired or discouraged? The Stoics believe that your soul, like your body, must be fed well to stay strong, and the company you keep is part of that nourishment. Protect it, curate it. Build a circle of people who light the way forward, not those who keep pulling you back. True confidence and calm do not grow in isolation, but they cannot survive in negativity either. Surround yourself with people who uplift you, and you will rise higher than you ever thought possible, not by force, but by alignment. If you want to become truly confident and calm in your current life, begin by evaluating your environment internally and externally. The first step is to stop comparing yourself to others. In today's digital age, it's easy to feel like you're falling behind when you only see the polished highlight reels of other people's lives. But their success does not diminish your worth. Everyone grows at a different pace. Refocus on your journey, your values, and your progress. Then turn your attention to your relationships. Are the people around you building you up or breaking you down? If someone constantly makes you doubt yourself, it's time to distance yourself. Your peace of mind is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Speak up for yourself. Don't confuse silence with strength when that silence is fueled by fear. Your voice matters, and expressing your truth calmly and clearly is how you build self-respect. Expect failure. It is not the enemy, it's a teacher. Every setback holds a lesson that can make you wiser and more resilient. Learn from it and adjust and move forward without shame. Lastly, be intentional about the company you keep. Surround yourself with people who believe in you, challenge you to grow, and support your goals. You don't need a crowd, you need alignment. If someone drains your energy, limits your growth, or undermines your purpose, it's okay to walk away. Confidence and calm are not traits you're born with. They are the result of choosing clarity over confusion, growth over comfort, and truth over approval. By applying these Stoic principles daily, focusing only on what you can control, letting go of toxic energy, speaking your truth, and learning from every experience, you can build a life of unshakable inner strength. It begins with courage, and it continues with consistency. Continue your journey of self-growth with us. Watch the next videos to discover more powerful lessons from Stoic philosophy that will help you live with greater confidence, peace, and strength every day. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new video. If you found this content helpful, be sure to like, comment, and share it with others. Thank you for being here. Your path to inner power is just getting started.